listen, hey, what's going on? This is your relationship ready moment with Czar. I've been talking a lot about this and just, being relationship ready and getting ourselves to a place where we're really not just eager for relationships, but actually ready for them. Because what's happening is, I think sometimes one of the reasons that the divorce rate is such high, or what it is, or some of our friendships and relationships are not lasting the way that they should last, is not because we're not intended to be together. Sometimes it's simply because we just have not employed or developed or matured in the skills that it actually takes to have these successful relationships that we are created to have. Listen, relationship is at the core of our being. It is at the very heart of our being. There is no way that the Creator created us and we have all of this incompatibility. All right, so there has to be another issue that's going on. And I think that what that really is that we really have not truly honed and sharpened or matured in our relational wisdom and even our spiritual intelligence as it relates to these particular things. So with Relationship Ready, I've developed this acronym that I have that we're going to use for right now, and I'm sure there's other things that we could probably come up with. Other relationality specialists or whatever may come up with something different, but this is what I have for you. And I actually am developing have developed a whole program around this for those of you who want like extensive coaching or extensive a specialist to really work with you on this stuff. I don't even want to just say coaching, because what we really do is actually go to the heart of the matter with this and look at patterns and different things that you have employed that may be in the way of you actually having the successful and happy relationships and joyous, I should say, relationships that you were really created to have. Basically, to live in the nature in which you were created for. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, so for Relationship Ready, here's the acronym R. The R stands for reason. Why are you getting in a relationship? This is very important. A lot of people have relationships just, again, because they just wanted one. All right, and that is important. You need to want it. All right, if you don't want it, then, why do it? But at the same time, having a reason for your relationship is basically giving you the purpose for it. What is the purpose? What is the vision for this relationship? Why am I really doing this? Why do I have to? Because you don't have to partner with anybody in a romantic sense or to be in that kind of relationship with anybody if you don't really want to. So why are you doing it? And when you really get a clear idea and clear picture as to why you're really doing it, it gives you intention for the relationship. That means that it gives you direction for the relationship. And then it begins to be one of the things that guides your every function within that relationship. And if your reason, I don't want to go too deep into what your specific reason is, but just kind of take in mind, you want that reason to be a pure reason, because if that reason is just to get your own rocks off, then the intention behind that is very selfish. And in some ways, it actually you'll begin to self-sabotage in ways that you don't even realize that you're self-sabotaging. So the second thing is, so that first thing is reason, all right? The second thing is empathy. Really, truly understanding what it means to be an empathetic person and to feel me, so to speak. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of times we hear each other. We have communication. We have conversations and this and the other. And they say, oh, I hear you. But I don't want to know just that you hear me. I'm not speaking just to be heard. But what we really want is to be felt. And not felt just in the sense of saying, oh, I feel for you, these emotions and this and that and the other. But to really feel a person in that sense is almost like to say, to really be moved by them and to really actually step in their shoes and experience to the best of our ability how they experience life, to experience their pains, to experience their joy, to experience what it is like to have the situations and that you may go through, to see what it's really like when we really truly feel one another and kind of have a basic understanding of that. We're able to kind of tackle our issues and all of those things a lot better than what you really think. When you really understand what a person is going through, then it really changes the way we deal with one another, and how would I say this? It activates our grace, and our grace is really needed for that. So empathy is the E. The A is actually, I'm gonna go this way because all the grasshoppers trying to get it. But the A is for accountability. One of the primary reasons for relationships, folks, is accountability. At the end of the day, a lot of times we don't like that word because we get to the place we don't want to be accountable to nobody. If you don't want to be accountable to anybody, you are not ready for a relationship. If you don't want to be held accountable, you are not ready for a relationship. And this is not a matter of talking about control or this is that and the other. For those of you that if you believe the creation story, when God created Adam, he said it wasn't good for man to be alone, right? So then he said, I'll make for him a helper. I'll make for him a suitable helper. Or helpmeet, and that word literally translates as a lifesaver. It translates as a protector, as a provider, as one equal with, all right? And that equality is equal in power, and this is any other. Why? Because we need somebody to bounce things off of. We need somebody to be accountable to, all right? Otherwise, we just do whatever the heck we want to do, right? And where does that get us at the end of the day? Doing whatever we want to do. And we live in this society now where, I'm just living my truth. And, sometimes we feel like that means that you can just do whatever you want to do, treat everybody any kind of way. But we need to have someone other than ourselves that we can hold ourselves. You need to be accountable to yourself, but also someone that you can hold yourself accountable to. And ultimately, that accountability is simply that you would be accountable to be your higher self, that you would be accountable to be who you really are, that you would be accountable to be the spirit you and not just the ego you. All right, that you would hold yourself accountable to that. And relationships, specifically significant other relationships, are somewhat designed in a way to be that type of intimate space and to really hold you accountable to that type of life and to that type of, being. All right, so accountability, very huge piece, almost one of the most primary purposes of even having a relationship in the first place. And then we go to the D, which is for devotion. Right? Devotion, not just commitment. We're committed to our jobs because we're actually going to get a check from it. But devotion is a word I really believe has been reserved for something you give to another human being, something you give to another spirit being, something you give to another life, so to speak. So we're not just saying I'm committed to this, but ultimately I'm devoted to this, which means that the decisions that I make, it means that the steps that I make and all of this is that and the other is taking into account my union and my oneness with another human being, with another person. And when I make the changes in my life, be it changes for bettering myself or changes for becoming my higher self or this is that and the other, it has another person in mind. All right, because here's the thing, at the end of the day, what's the point of being your greatest self if ain't nobody in it but you, if ain't nobody in your life but you? Yes, there's a certain level of satisfaction that you get from that, but ultimately, as we're held in that space of accountability to one another, and we're in this system of oneness with one another, we need to have a deep-seated devotion in our hearts to one another and say, I'm not just committed to you, I am devoted to you. My life is devoted to this. I live my life not just for me, but I also live my life in so many ways also for you, because I recognize that I am an intricate part of your life. All right, so devotion, folks, devotion is powerful. All right, and we have to have that devotion to one another. A lot of times parents understand this with their kids. And then the where were we at? We're at D, and then Y. All right, the Y is yielding. All right, yielding is extremely important. All right, there's the idea that some of the most successful relationships really happen when we can submit ourselves one to another. Not when one dominates over the other, and not when one is calling all of the shots, and not when one has to make all of the decisions, but when we really truly come into this space of yielding to one another and actually making way for one another and allowing one another to be who they really are, and that's so important and so deeply important. Like I said, it is one of the greatest qualities of effective relationships is being at a space where we really submit to one another and we yield to one another and we actually flow with one another or be in obedience to one another. And obedience is not necessarily saying do whatever I tell you to do. It's just simply saying that we have formed a choreographed piece of art. We have formed a choreographed dance where we're actually flowing together, where we're in harmony together, and we're actually living in a way that causes one another to thrive. That's what yielding is really all about. It's about causing one another to thrive, causing one another to be able to be the greatest at being who we are, not having to be something else, but being the greatest at being who we are and supporting one another in that particular space. All right, so if that's your relationship ready, you got to have a reason. You got to have that empathy. Got to be accountable. Got to be devoted. And you got to be yielding. Peace.